Fruit of the Loom jumper, I had Nike Air Max. I looked at the B's and E's, I was 12 years old, I had money in my pocket. So I would do anything for these boys. Anything I would do for these boys. But it changes. Again, in the 90s, heroin became a big thing, in Halifax in particular, in Yorkshire. So all the boys are doing heroin. We were in a house one day. They said, would it be a good idea to give Chris some heroin? Chris, would you like some heroin? Yes, I'd love that, like a cup of tea. They said, come upstairs and we'll do it. And they were just about to, they were getting me all ready for it. It was warming up the liquid. It was about to inject it into my arm. And at that moment, the police kicked the door down because it was a house known for criminals and where, you know, there were going to be drugs, etc. But again, serendipity. Luck. For that moment, the police kicked the door down. I wasn't ejected. I ran off. Everybody dispersed. I went back to my grandparents' house to hide. Only place I could go. I was 12 years old. A couple of days later, the police came, knocked on the door, thought I was going to get arrested. They said, we're not here to arrest you. We're here to show you a document. And on that document is a piece of paper. And on that piece of paper, there is going to show you the percentage of heroin which was about to be injected into your arm, but it killed you imminently. And that was like, that was it for me. I just remember breaking down, crying, hugging my grandma. But in that moment, I remember being a 12-year-old boy and just saying to my grandparents and saying to the police, I don't want to live this life anymore. I want to be a child again. At 12, you should be a child. I want support. You know, I'm missing my dad and everything's changed for me in such a short period of time. I don't want to live like this anymore. And then my grandma and the police, they got me into CAMS. CAMS, waste of space for me back then. It's not great now, but then it was even worse because it was literally a tick box scenario where you went into a room and someone didn't even look at you, didn't care about you and asking you these questions. So that didn't work for me. Worked for some people, didn't work for me. Grandma then approached a boxing coach, and boxing, what a life changer that was, because that enabled me to exert that negative energy in a positive way. But what happens in a boxing gym is that most of the boys there, older boys, they've been through what you've been through, but they chose a different pathway, or they had support. So it can be crime, or it can be success, and that kind of, you know, using that energy, that negative energy, and turning it into a positive. That's what boxing did for me. Getting in that ring and knocking someone out and not getting arrested, that was brilliant. Because every time I hit someone on the streets, I got arrested. So I was like, oh, great, I can just punch people. But using it in a good way and then seeing the reward. So that was a life changer for me. Absolute life changer. And saying to these boys as well, I lost my dad. And then these older boys say, oh, I lost my dad too, Chris, you know, but it doesn't mean your world has to change. And so it was again, the first time since my dad died, I met a positive advocate, a role model, which everybody needs in the care sector. They need somebody to look up to inspire to be. And it gave me that with boxing. I became really good at it. I became a schoolboy champion. And at 18, I turned professional. I mean, wow, that shouldn't have happened. You know, it could have gone a different way. And I remember at 18, I had a first professional fight. They took me to Glasgow, to St Andrew's Sporting Centre, and I boxed a guy called Stevie Kane. And when he walked out, he was from Scotland. So it was like Braveheart, you know, rah, kill the English, rah. And I'm 18, you know, being on a sunbed, got my hair, I'm looking good, I'm ripped, not now. But I'm walking out and all I heard was this. And I thought, oh no, I'd already lost. And I got in the centre of the ring and this guy come out, Stevie Kane, he's looking in my eyes and you can see he wants to kill me. And I'm just like, well, I want to die. And then the bell went and he came out on the first punch, boom, with a 6-ounce glove and hit me on the head. And I had a deja vu of being sat at the dinner table with my dad on Christmas Day. And I thought in that moment, I don't think boxing's for me, you know. But the thing about boxing was, it was the training, it was that environment. I mean, even now when I work with kids and I take them into the boxing gym, I say to people, don't need to fight, but enjoy that environment, be safe in that environment, train hard, reap the reward, see your body change, have a fight. Or if you don't want to fight, you don't have to fight, but just see how that can have a huge impact on your life like it did with me. It really did change my life. It gave me discipline. It made me like myself again. Something we don't think about when we work with young people is they lose their identity, and as we all know, it's a facade. They think they like themselves, but they don't. I hate myself. I hated life. Absolutely hated life. But that made me feel good again. Getting fit, running, having people say good things to me. It makes such a difference. Well done, buddy. Well done, Chris Wild. You know, walking around Halifax town and the butcher, like Rocky, would come out and give me bags of meat, sausages and stuff. But he said one thing. He said, your dad would be proud of you. I thought, oh, that's all I needed to hear. Say good things to me. And I do it now with the young lads I work with. Even when I'm in jails, I say, look, and I do workshops, I say, that's brilliant. Well done. You can achieve anything. And it has such an impact. So turning pro at 18, everything's going great. But there's something wrong. I had all this success, small success, but still success. And it just wasn't working. Losing that fight, came back to Halifax, felt really depressed. It was quite corrupt. People betting on you, it wasn't the same. I thought, is this the life I really want? I don't know if I want to be a professional boxer where people are betting on me, and if I lose, they lose, because they lose a lot of money. So that bothered me. But so I felt really depressed. And in that moment of depression, all those other boys who I used to knock around with, they were loving it. Oh, they were loving it. Oh, he's depressed. If he thinks he's better than us, let's teach him a lesson. And they coaxed me slowly back into that circle because they saw I'd becoming vulnerable. I stopped training, I stopped going out running, avoided the drinks and the drugs at 18, like most boys. They just cared about being fit. But in that moment, they managed to get me back into that environment. And one of them took me to the toilet one day and gave me a line of cocaine. Oh, that was it. Boom. I was addicted that quick. That one line of powder made me feel omnipotent. It made me feel like I was so special, and all the trauma and all that anger, it gone in that moment of madness. But then from that one line, I became addicted very quickly. Stopped training, stopped liking myself again, was drinking. I was getting into fights. I was just becoming a nuisance. And then from having somebody call you a hero to say hero to zero, it pushed me into a very deep depression. So much so that I thought, you know what? I'm going to end it all. I'm going to kill myself. I made a plan to kill myself. It was a really happy day because at that moment I'd borrowed loads of money from drug dealers and my parents. Everybody was looking for me. I'd just become a shadow of myself. I hate myself. So I thought, you know what? The best thing for me is to die. Saves a lot of problems. And I planned it, and I was really happy about planning it. I was on the dorm. I got my pension, my universal credit, my dorm money. I went and spent it on vodka and drugs, and I took myself to this old cottage, and I put the rope around my neck, and I was about to jump, and I'm getting weird, and I can't jump, and I'm thinking, in that moment, there's one story, and I'm thinking, it just came to me again. Talk about luck, talk about serendipity. This story about my dad when we were young, working on a slaughterhouse, in a slaughterhouse with cash in hand. And it was winter, and the only job he could secure to feed his family. Anyway, he had a pedal moped and he fell off it and he broke his ankle, and there was no sick pay and it was winter, so he had to get himself back up and go to work and do a 12-hour shift, and he wrapped his ankle up with sticks, and he completed an 8-hour shift in a freezing cold wet slaughterhouse just to make sure me and my sister had food on the table. He was the same age as me, and I'm stood on a thing about to take my life and thinking, that man sacrificed his life for me, and this is what I'm doing. And it was a beautiful moment because I realized that life is worth living. I need to get help, and I've never really been able to do that. And like a lot of young lads can't do that. It's like to say to someone, because you feel vulnerable and you feel that there's going to be all these things said about you. If you say, I'm in pain, I need help. I said that, and I cried and I cried and I cried and managed to get some help. And that was beautiful. It just like having poison removed from your body. But I knew if I stayed in Halifax, it wasn't going to be great, and I didn't want to do therapy. But someone said, try acting. You've got all that life experience, get into acting. So I called up the local drama teacher and started to do some acting lessons. Again, I do this now with the lads I work with. I write scripts, get them all doing acting because it works. You can act out your traumas with support. But that, for me, acting worked. It was really good to go into a theatre, say to the drama teacher, this is who I am, and him finding scripts which I could relate to. And that was brilliant. That was therapy for me. And I use it now. It's one of my main tools working with people, is write scripts and getting them to act it out. Some of them are silly, some of them take it serious, but still, you're doing it, you're acting it out. It spiraled, I became really good at acting. I was doing loads of plays, became a hero again. It was nice to have that kind of, he's doing well again. But there was still that thing ticking away at the back of my head, that trauma. Nobody really had help for it as such. But acting took me to LA, random thing to do. Everyone thought I was crazy. Everyone thought, his mental health's kicking in, he's back on the drugs. But it wasn't. It's because I was fearless. I was absolutely fearless. I've been homeless, I've been in care. I've got no one who cares about me, no one loves me. So going to LA was like, now, I've got nothing to lose. Absolutely nothing to lose. Went to LA, went to a drama school there for 3 years. Did well, living a life, chasing my dreams. Again, fearless, the kid from care, just doing it, whatever I want to do. Got to LA, I finished my course, came back to England, went back to Halifax, I know where to go. I quickly realised could go wrong here. So I packed my bags and I went to London. Now, this is the final chapter. This is the great chapter. Is going to London. It became life-changing again. I worked in a bar like most actors do. You know, every waiter in London is an actor. But what happened for me is my wife walked in one day. Didn't know she was my wife. It's a beautiful woman. And everybody in the bar was saying, she's too good for you, mate. For some stupid reason. When she came to the bar and ordered a drink, I replied in an Irish accent. I mean, I'm not even Irish, it's not a deep state. What do you do that for? And then I kept it going. And then, slowly but surely, I phased it back into Yorkshire, broad Yorkshire. And I said to her, I'm not from Ireland, aren't you? And she went, no shit, Sherlock, of course I get that. It was like, but anyhow, this girl, I fell in love, went on a date with her, and I thought, she's too good for me. I'm just going to be honest, because everybody I've ever loved dies. That was in my head. Everybody I've ever loved dies. So I forced everybody away from me. Became quite lonely in that respect. And that's what trauma does to you. When you lose somebody very close to you, you think everybody's going to die close to you. So the only way to save yourself and protect yourself is push everybody away. But this girl, I said to her, look, I'm broken, I'm damaged, I'm gonna mess your life up. And she did this, she made this gesture. And she put it in a black bag and she gave it to me. She went, that's yours. And she said to me, a bad workman blames his tools for doing a bad job. Your past is your tool. I said, excuse me? She said, you need to go back into the care sector as a professional and help other people like you. Boom, that was it. I was obsessed. You know what? All your life you've just been waiting for that. For me, that's all I've ever waited for all my life, is for someone to shine a light and show me the path. It became my life. It is my life today. I went back to college. I read every book on the care sector. Became obsessed with this, going back into the system and helping people like me. I'm still obsessed with it. I was hungry, and I got my first job in a private children's home in Sidcup. And everybody was excited. We had a party at home because I'd had a million jobs. I couldn't settle sales jobs, this job. I did everything. But going back into the care sector as a key worker, having a title, a key worker, you're going to help kids. I was like, yes, getting a badge with my name on it and stuff. I felt special and powerful. And then I met the manager outside the house. It was a 5-bedroom house. We placed kids there from 14 to 16. Most of them kids who come from kind of criminal backgrounds or gang affiliation and stuff like that. So it was quite high risk. And then he opened the door. He said to me, he said, when you go in here, remember this. The one lesson you learn in this sector is they don't come into your world, you go into their world. You adapt to their world. That's the only way you can help these young boys. And he opened the door, and there's a kid swinging off a chandelier. And it had this old, stairway, wood, and it was all kicked in. I thought, yes, I'm home, man. This is where I want to be. But then quickly realised, going into the staff room, the staff weren't engaging with these young boys. I hated that, still hate it today. They were sat there drinking coffee going, don't bother with them, they'll end up in jail. I said, no, I don't operate like that. If somebody had that attitude with me, I'd be dead now. And I gave these boys my time. I went out there, worked with these boys, and I saw that these boys were achieving things, small things like tidying their bedroom. One of the main things, the first thing I ever witnessed when I gave a young man respect is he knocked on the office door and asked me if I wanted a cup of tea. He knocked on the door and asked me if I wanted a cup of tea. That to everyone's like, no big deal. But for him, it's a huge deal. For me, it was a massive deal because that relationship, that trust, we'd worked on so hard where when I first started working, he was telling me to F off. Now he's knocking on the door and saying, Chris, sorry to bother you. Do you want a cup of tea? Boom. That was proof in the pudding. But if you give people care and attention, if you respect these young people, they'll respect you back. It's not their business to make me respect them. I respect them. I'm coming into this job. From that, it bothered me because I saw the system wasn't right. It was still very similar to when I left 30 years previously, but kids were still being abandoned, neglected. I saw a lot of bad things in that care home where staff members just didn't care. They said a lot of bad things about the boys. The boys were just going missing. They weren't reporting these kids missing. I opened the cupboards and they had no frills cereal, and going into the staff room and seeing they've got Cocoa Pops and everything. Not my shift. That wasn't happening. So from that, I then went to work for the local